And so once there are 1,000 people in that road, we're not going to drive on the normal road.
Oh, wait, I didn't know this. So
yeah,
you actually had a road you could have taken, but
there was a road.
But like Robert Frost said, you went to the road less traveled.
Yeah, and that made all the difference.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to In the Unlikely Event. I am your host, Rick Kiley, founding partner of Soho Experiential, a New York-based agency that's produced thousands of events over the last couple decades. This is the show where we celebrate the event professionals who somehow keep the curtain rising, even when chaos, bad decisions, and occasionally Mother Nature herself tries to shut everything down. Because in experiential marketing, we do everything we can to ensure the public never sees what's going on behind the scene. Today's story, though? Well, they actually did. My guest today is John Connors. John is an experienced designer, event creator, and the founder of Peak End Creative, a Utah-based agency that builds the kind of moments people don't forget for brands, cities, and museums. His clients include Adobe, Owala, Crumble, Visit Salt Lake, Springville Museum of Art, Little Moons, Rise Lantern Festival, and many, many more. Before Peak End, John was a founding member of Bigsley Event House, where he helped launch the Color Run, which became the largest running series in the world. And today we're going back in Color Run history to one of the first runs ever produced. John, welcome to In the Unlikely Event.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here, excited to talk about this. Always a fun event. Back in 2012, the Color Run was still brand new. The concept was simple. Take a 5K, throw brightly colored powder at runners every kilometer. It's a funny sentence to say out loud. Take a 5K, throw brightly colored powder at runners every kilometer, and then turn the finish line into a giant outdoor party. People absolutely loved it. After a successful launch event in Phoenix, the team headed to Austin, Texas for what would become their second event ever. About 7,000 runners signed up. Confidence was high, the venue was set, things seemed under control, and then the Texas rain showed up. The course turned into mud, and the festival grounds started disintegrating. And just before the race began, the giant truck carrying all the color powder, literally the thing that makes the Color Run, sank into the ground, challenging the delivery of the event promise. At that point, John and his team had about 30 minutes to figure out how to save an event that was actively falling apart, but somehow it became one of the most important moments in the company's growth and history. Okay, John, on your marks, get set, let's go.
I mean, I think you nailed it. You set the stage perfectly for it. That's I had some kind of PTSD moments hearing that, but it did take me right back into the like visceral feelings that you get in an event that is spiraling in front of your eyes.
It is not a fun feeling. It is not a fun feeling. And I appreciate you willingness to go back there, because of course it probably wasn't fun to go through, but the story turns out to be one that is like very important for the growth of you personally and the business itself. So thanks for spending the time with us. I'm looking forward to it. So before we talk about, I think it would be helpful, before we talk about the event and what happened itself, can you explain to everybody what the Color Run was?
It seems like ancient history now, but there was a time when Instagram was not ubiquitous. Very few people had Instagram. Facebook was kind of relatively new as something most people had. And within the event world, especially like the running event world, there was starting to be this shift of like people doing events and then talking about the event they just did, especially like sharing pictures of it.
Right.
What we were seeing a lot was a lot of mud run events. Like mud runs were starting to grow popular at the time. The biggest running series in the world at the time was the Rock and Roll Marathon.
Okay.
So there was kind of this shift towards away from running as a competitive sport and towards running as a social connection, like opportunity. Yep. A lot of first-time runners and kind of recreational runners. We wanted it to be urban, like based in cities.
Okay.
What we needed to figure out is what is the hook, like mud was the hook for a mud run. So we started thinking like, well, what can you cover someone with when they're running? Liquid paint was like the original color run idea, and it became almost immediately clear that was
Yeah.
a bad idea. Like, far worse than if we were to say, let's just truck in mud and throw mud at people.
All right. Cool.
We settled on this idea of throwing powder. We were pretty confident people would like it.
Yeah.
What we didn't think is people would love it and it would
Yeah.
go crazy. Sort of what Instagram was growing at the time. But if you look back, like this is fall of 2011, spring of 2012 is when Instagram becomes available on Android. And then fall of 2012 is when Facebook buys Instagram. And so kind of over that Christmas period, everybody in the world got Instagram. And suddenly, like, we thought we were making a running event that would be attractive to people who like fun running. And then suddenly there was this like insatiable demand for content of yourself doing something interesting. And the color run was like right there.
Perfect. So much of success is timing, and it's just the confluence of those things. I remember seeing the images, bright color, and people like exuberant from having gotten to their runner's high, and it was great. Yeah. It was awesome. But this was we're back in the early days of this company, early days of this run, and you said this was like your second event ever. So how big was the company at this point? You and like how many other people?
There were probably 5 full-time employees at that time. We had a tiny office that we all sat in. It was like a one-room office. And every person did everything.
Yeah.
So you were like an event director and a marketing lead and the sponsorship coordinator and you're sort of every single hat you're wearing.
I'm very familiar. I remember when my business partner and I started and we like landed our first event, we were like, looked at each other and we're like, all right, which one of us is production? Just like, it's a funny time. So what made you think that this idea could actually be like a revenue generating, self-liquidating experience? Like what was the idea around like we could make this work?
I think Color Run ends up being the model that a lot of other 5K fun running events saw, like, okay, that worked, now this will work. Color Run itself was a little bit more of a gamble. What made it less scary for us is we were confident we could produce it. And the way that running events work, people pay for them in advance, typically like weeks or months in advance.
Right.
And so you're able to get your funding to put on the event.
And you said your first event was like successful, so you probably had very positive indicators out of the gate. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, we felt cautiously optimistic. Like we were much more nervous 2 weeks earlier when we did our very first ever event.
Right. Why was Austin picked as the second city?
Primarily because of weather, actually, which is funny because that ends up being the problem. But what we had hoped to do was put on 20 events in that first year.
Right.
Rock and Roll Marathon had 12 events. We wanted to come out the gate strong enough to, be the brand for this type of event.
Right.
And in fact, I remember talking to the head of Rock and Roll Marathon. We went down to the Dallas Marathon and we saw him there and told him what our plan was. We said, do you have any advice? And he's like, you won't be able to do it. You can't do 20 events in a year. If you even try, you need to have like the best team in the world. I think he was forgetting that a 5K is like way shorter.
Right. Marathon, sure.
Like it's pretty easy to permit a 5K. But in any case, we picked these 3 first events in warm climates that we knew in January and February we could have it be warm enough.
Right.
We had 1 in Arizona and 2 in Texas, Austin, and then Dallas 2 weeks later.
Okay. And so the one in Austin, the second one where we had the troubles, it was scheduled and permitted and the run was put in a park. And it was a trail-based run, which turned out to be very important. Was that not feeling risky at all?
I mean, I wish I could say that it was like something we really heavily considered.
Right.
We were much closer to thinking, we're in Texas, maybe it will rain. That's okay. You can do a run in the rain.
Yeah.
Like, we'll be all right.
Right.
Nothing about it felt dangerous for sure, which was like, so that we were sure it wasn't going to be dangerous. Uh, what we weren't sure is of what normal even is for the color. Like we didn't know
Right.
what that much of what it was like to set up this event. We
Sure.
didn't know which parts were the critical parts for runners versus like we thought this would be cool, but runners don't care, so we're gonna slough that off later.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're coming to Austin. We're going to start getting to the conflict here. When did you start to think that this weather, that this rain, like might become an issue? Like when did it start to rear its head?
What was interesting is the forecast for that week was that race day would be clear and great, and which ultimately it was clear and great. The
Awesome.
rain was in the days leading up to race day.
Okay.
And so we initially thought, okay, this is going to affect our setup time. This won't really affect the event day.
Got it. Got it.
We'll just push most of our setup to race morning. It seemed like we'd be fine. We did start to get messages the day before from runners saying, hey, are we going to do this? Like, is this going to happen? Because they're looking out the window and it's pouring.
Right.
And also they probably know Texas better than we did,
Right.
to be honest. And they were probably like, hey, we're on a path. And when it rains like this, the paths get super muddy.
Okay. Talk to me. So you arrived to set up, I'm guessing it was like 5, 6 in the morning, the morning of race day?
No, like 3 a.m.
3
We get there
a.m.
at like 3 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about like what the conditions that you walked into at 3 a.m. Because I think that's probably when reality started to sink in, right?
I mean, reality sunk in when I woke up at 2:30 to go out the door and looked out the window. And it's just like the amount of, it's hard for me even now to explain how much water was coming from the sky. It was like someone had turned on a hose and like hadn't put their thumb on it or anything, just turned it upside down and it was coming over all of Austin.
We have like the fictional flood of Noah's Ark, like at one end of the
it
spectrum.
Totally felt like that. It felt like this is apocalyptic rain. And I checked the weather again. It says, it'll be clear by 7 a.m. And you look out and you think, there is no way. There's no way this is clear by 7 a.m. Like, it's the type of rain that your like windshield wipers can't keep up with. So drive to the venue. There's like an awning, like a picnic awning on the venue. And our whole staff just kind of gathers under that awning. And there's sort of this minute where we are trying to decide what's going to be okay to set up in the rain. What should we wait until the rain clears up? And one of the things we decide should wait is the powder, because we don't want the powder to get soaking wet. And we start setting up all the other stuff that's really weather resistant, like setting up all the trussing and the start and finish chutes and flag bases and all that stuff throughout. And we're just soaked to the bone out there. But there's a certain point where you get so wet that you just can't get more wet. And
right. You pass that point pretty quickly.
Basically like setting this up in a swimming pool. Yeah. And so it's sort of going fine. The rain breaks at like 5:30, just like the forecast has said, even a little earlier than the forecast had said. And the sun comes up at 6:30 and it's like not a cloud in the sky. It's beautiful, like so beautiful. And then participants start arriving. I mean, as you know, putting on events, like guests always arrive too early. Like there's always guests arriving earlier than you hoped. And so they're arriving at like 7:30, but other than the color powder being out on course, we're ready for them.
Right.
And so they come and check in and head over to the finish chute. It gets to be about 8 o'clock for the 9 o'clock start time, and we've probably got 1,000 people in the start chute. And we realized like we got to get this color powder out onto the course, pretty quick.
I do want to pause because I want to talk about our content partner Out of Office for a second. They have been building a fantastic insight engine into this platform that provides directional intelligence for experiential businesses and producers like yourself. Something like this, predicting and planning for weather contingencies, falls right into their wheelhouse. I'm not going to say this problem would have been more easily solved, but it might have been with today's
Oh man,
technology.
we needed it.
Yeah,
We
so
needed it.
I think it's 2026. We've arrived at the time where technology exists, so we don't have to learn some of these lessons the hard way, as many of us entrepreneurs have. So you should check them out at liveoutofoffice.com. They can really help make your life easier. All right. Okay, back to the story, because this is the really good stuff. And I want to get the timing down here. So you talk, skies cleared at 6:30. People are starting to arrive at 7:30. The race was supposed to start at 9. Is that correct?
Yeah. And Color Run kind of starts in waves because there's so many people. So we send out like 1,000 people at a time. So the race will start from 9 till like 10.
But at this point, you've got a box truck, right? And all of the color powder is on the box truck. And what time are we at where we're like, okay, we got to get the truck out there? I want everyone to understand how little time you have to deal with what happens here.
Like 8 o'clock.
Okay. So an hour before race time, you send the truck out.
And the truck's going to need to drive. There's like a road that goes around the edge of the course. Man, looking back, there's just some moments where you think that was so stupid. And one of them is this. The primary road that this truck has to drive on to get out to the course is also the start chute. And so once there are 1,000 people in that road lined up to race, you're like, oh, we're not going to drive on the normal road. We'll just drive across the festival site, which we've done with the little, 4x4s that we're driving and other vehicles.
Oh, wait, I didn't know this. So
yeah,
you actually had a road you could have taken, but
there was a road.
But like Robert Frost said, you went to the road less traveled.
Yeah, and that made all the difference in this case, for sure. If future John could go back and talk to old John, he'd be like, hey, let's go talk to those 1,000 people. Let's clear the road and let's drive on the road like we intended to do. Sometimes you get this cowboy in events that is great, and sometimes it's not great. So someone hops in the truck. And just goes for a straight shot across the festival.
Right.
This truck's going across, and right when it gets in front of the stage, it just sinks. Like all the way to the axle.
You've told me this story
sinks.
3 times, and every time you say that it just sinks. I just die.
You could hear people go, oh, like that sound of all of us realizing at once, like, oh no, this is a problem. So like we get a couple staff on the back of the truck. And we're like, okay, well, we do that rock back and forth thing, try to push it out. We got mud shooting up in people's faces as they're trying to push it. And then like, this is how great color runners were always like the greatest people. They decide, like runners, probably 100 runners in the chute are like, we're going to hop out. We're going to go try to help them push this thing out. So then there's like runners back there trying to push it out as well. At one point, you realize like, okay, it's not moving. Like we're not going to get this out, and clock's ticking away. Right. Now it's like 8:30. Okay. We got 30 minutes till this thing is going to start. You start going through this like triage in your brain of like, what are the things we explicitly promised that we have to deliver? And let's start checking those off and make sure they're delivered. The first one is color. Like it's just the run without the color and all of the colors in the truck. So the very first issue is how are we going to get color out onto the course?
Yes.
Then the second issue will become what to do with this truck, but we're going to have 30 minutes between when the first runner starts and when the truck becomes our biggest problem.
We got to solve problem 1 because we have 30 minutes, right?
Yep.
And we're going to kick the can 30 minutes down the road on problem 2 because it'll take the fastest people another 30 minutes to finish the 5K.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yep, exactly.
It was having like 100 people trying to push the truck and it wasn't moving. You're just like, all right, guys, we're done. Like
almost as soon as we saw runners starting to run over to it, my initial instinct was like, we got to shut down this being a big visible problem. I don't want guests thinking like this thing is falling apart at the seams.
Right.
I'm okay with guests thinking a truck got stuck, almost as soon
Yeah.
as they started getting there, I started trying to shut down everyone trying to push it out because it's like, let's not make this their problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it was a pretty funny little moment when they were out there.
All right. So I'm gonna come back to like the solving these problems in a second, but like we have to solve the color thing, which we're gonna talk about how you solved it. But also like you had an issue with the course as well, correct? Like it was
Yeah.
very
It was
muddy.
really muddy. I mean, we were confident it would be safe. The part we were unsure about was, 7,000 people is a lot of people on a trail.
Uh-huh.
And on a really already wet trail by the end, by not even by the end, by after 1,000 people,
Yeah.
it's a mud pit. By the end, it was like swallowing people's shoes. Like people would finish like with their shoes in their hands because their foot would just sink and then it would like suction cup their shoe off.
Oh my God.
One of the biggest things we had to clean up at the end of that event was shoes because people just would leave their shoes and walk to their car. Some of this is embarrassing as an event professional, but it's my joyful like early hijinks.
We've all had these things. Like I'm very appreciative you're telling this story, and like I think there are so many good things that came out of it. We can start talk about how you're solving these problems in real time. So we're gonna get to that part, but like that must have felt like in that moment, like emotionally, one of like the hardest things to have to go through.
Yeah.
As an event producer listening, I'm kind of having like producer PTSD. So I get it. But it's impressive you guys sort of like kept it together. And, I guess the adrenaline rush of like, okay, we got to just keep solving, we take over, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that's like a fun story to tell. And none of it was fun, like in the moment. In the moment, it kind of felt like, this is something we really cared about and spent a lot of time building, and this is like not going well. That was hard.
And it's your second event in like an entrepreneurial venture. Like I'm sure there's party in the back of your head, like, oh, this could kill us, right? Like I'm not sure that might not have been frontal lobe at that moment, but like that's the type of thing where you're like, oh, this could be serious. So
yeah, and I mean that ended up being one of the trickiest. Not trickiest parts, but one of the parts that I feel like as an event leader, you have to develop the ability to think that and not say that out loud to everyone else there that's on the staff.
Of course, yes.
How do I approach this truck that's now stuck and not say like, what the hell were you thinking? Let's litigate this right now about how like stupid this was, and not say like, this could crush us, like this could ruin the event, but instead say like, okay, what do we need to do? And let's start doing those things and just like keep it together while inside this voice in your head is yelling all those things at you.
Let's start talking about the genius solutions. You're having to deal with this in real time. You have less than 30 minutes before race time. You couldn't deliver the color promise the way that you wanted to. What did you do to solve that? How did you deliver the color to people?
The way the color run is set up is to have 4 color stations throughout the course, and you wouldn't be able to get all 4 of them set up with the flags and the look that we wanted it to have. But we did know we could set up 2 really big ones. Like one that basically combined 2 of them in 2 different spaces.
Nice.
And so the first one is, a quarter mile after you start. You just ran through this massive color station where people were throwing, and each color station is a different color. So people were throwing 2 different colors at you in the first one. Then you ran like almost the whole race.
Right.
Before the last one, which was, 100 yards before the finish line.
Yeah.
And we sort of put all the powder in those 2 places that we knew we could get to start on time. Starting on time in running is one of those things where like if you don't start on time, people immediately start thinking this is a poorly organized event.
Okay.
People know you care about them through your organization, like how well organized you are.
Right.
As well as like how the staff treats them. But like when you get to a poorly organized event, you tend to think like these guys didn't think about me at all.
Right.
So starting on time was a big one. Like starting on time and having porta potties, you'd think that the most important thing at the color run was like the color or the course. And it would always be like there weren't enough porta potties or it didn't start on time. Like those would be the ones that people get most
That's
fired
funny.
up about.
Did it ever occur to you to let everybody like take a couple like bags of color themselves that was running and just let them run with it and say like peg a friend? Like that would have been my solution. I guess that's why I'm not producing these runs.
Well, so at that event, we were nervous we wouldn't have enough packs if we did that.
Yeah.
That ends up being one of the solutions we tested after it to like solve for this. Like, okay, what would we do if we didn't have enough color out on the course, or if something happened and we had to shut one of them down?
Right.
And so we tested a few races where we gave everyone packs of color. Ultimately, you can't hold that packet of color and not open it. Like they just open it in the start line and throw it immediately, and then it's gone. And now they're just got powder on them in the start line.
All right. Okay, but the color promise is delivered. People happy still being covered in color, and that worked out. But then you have this other big problem, right? We got a truck stuck in front of the stage where you were hosting the party. So what did you do about to sort of change that situation?
Photos are going to matter at this thing, we know from the beginning. And that's a pretty obvious like mistake, a huge truck in front of all of your branded signage and stage.
Yeah.
And so that, the first thought was, okay, it's now been dry for a teeny bit longer. Maybe we can try one more time once the first runners start to pull it out.
Yeah.
We gave that about 10 seconds of a try before being sure that like, okay, that's not it.
Okay.
And you sort of have this like event Serenity Prayer moment where you're like, okay, I need to know like, what can I change? Give me the serenity to know what I can't, accept what I can't change, and figure out what I can change, and give me the wisdom to know the difference. There's sort of this minute where you're like, all right, what can we adjust and what can't we adjust?
Yeah.
The truck we cannot move.
Right.
It might be here forever. This might become a feature of this park at this point. It's like, it's in there. And so our thought was like, this is now a permanent feature of the park. The solution, pretty quickly, we decided this truck is now the stage. We got to take all the signage off the stage, all the signage that flanks the stage, move it up to the truck, shrink the size of the festival a little bit, but we still have plenty of space. And now like everything that was going to happen on the stage happens on top of this truck. Like the MC is going to crawl up there. He's going to stand up on top of this thing. And when people finish, they're going to see a truck that is a stage. And most of them will see it and realize that's a truck that got stuck in the mud and now they're standing on top of it. But some person will also say like, oh, what a weird thing to use as your stage. They brought in a truck stage. It felt very like DIY and crazy and like, whoa, these guys are nuts.
But what's funny is it's like not altogether out of line with the brand that you were building, right? Like, so it's like one thing to have, I don't know, to be at the New York City Marathon and see something like that happen, but you guys were doing fun run color runs that were designed to be like, I don't know, visually interesting and ultimately socially share worthy. So
yeah,
you maybe unintentionally created a really interesting social share worthy moment, right? Like
by that point, their inhibitions are kind of gone. It's a beautiful sunny day, so they're not cold, but they're like, they've run a 5K. They're pretty dirty, both from mud and from color powder.
Right.
It's been bizarre. Like the whole thing has kind of been bizarre for them. And so what ended up being I thought the bigger problem would be people saying like, this isn't really a stage, and us having to like explain what happened. The harder thing we dealt with was convincing them not to also crawl up on top of the truck.
Nice.
To be like, no,
yeah, of course.
None of you can crawl on the truck. Like the truck is our stage. We shifted it maybe unintentionally to something that was probably closer to what they expected it to be.
Do you feel like there was a moment where you finally had some relaxation and relief around like, oh, okay, we've pulled this off, we figured it out, people are having a good time? Like did that feeling after going through all of these hijinks and problem solving and last minute changes arrive for you?
No. It didn't feel like it did.
14 years later, I still don't feel good.
The problems that I was worried about became progressively smaller.
Right.
And so like it never hit a point where I was like, oh, we pulled it all off and we've got no wounds
Right.
from it.
It had to feel good
It
to
felt
see
good.
people like
It did feel good.
enjoying the truck stage.
Yeah, the first handful of runners who I talked to after and were really excited, that was a moment that felt like, okay, the thing I'm most scared about always as an event producer is someone saying like, I was promised something different.
Right.
I feel like you lied to me.
Right,
That sort of
right,
like keeps me up at night as event producer. Like,
Yeah.
what did we promise? We make sure we deliver what we promised. And to have people say like, hey, you can't control the weather. That was so crazy. I can't believe you pulled it off. Like that was really fun. I sort of in my role also had to live in with the founder of it, Travis, in this sort of online world of how are people responding to this online and make sure that we kind of address those. And that crowd was pretty upset. There were at least loud voices in that group that were upset. So
yeah,
I think my brain, once it knew we had pulled this off physically,
right,
shifted to like response mode.
Yeah, so this is something we haven't really talked about with any other guests on this show, is like when people are disappointed, they've reached out to you afterwards. You guys made a very significant effort to try to address every single individual that had an issue. I'm just wondering if you talk about like what that experience was and what the positive outcome was from doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as any brand, but especially like a brand new brand, your name and people trusting you is so important. And then to us personally, that mattered too. Like we genuinely cared about people having a good experience. So it came pretty intuitively. Like if we were going to read these comments, we were going to respond to them. We would just kind of respond to whatever specific thing they were asking about, but as a person, instead of like a cut and paste of every single one. We just would literally like, as if they came and talked to us, respond to them. First of all, like it would kind of disarm people because they would think like, oh, I actually didn't think you would respond.
Right.
And then especially not so fast.
Right.
Like I thought maybe you'd go talk to a PR agency and come back, but it was literally like Travis sitting at first under that awning and responding to people, and then going back to the hotel and responding. And then the other thing that happened is other people watching that were going onto social media having finished the race that either had a great time or had an okay time, but felt like the effort was there. Like an honest effort by event professionals was made to do this well.
Right.
Started like jumping in and would comment sometimes before we would comment and say like, wow, hey, actually like they can't control the weather and, like lay off. And then we'd have to come back in and be like, no, like they've got a valid concern. Please don't get mad at them.
That's nice.
They've got a valid concern, but it shifted a little bit to like, hey, we're mad at this faceless corporation to like, we're frustrated that this event was rainy and muddy.
Yeah.
And not what we expected, but it was put on by humans.
Yeah.
And these humans are like, seem all right. Then sort of immediately the focus of our whole team became like, Dallas is now the most important race in the history of the company. So get Dallas right. It was a lot of that, like one problem to the next in those days.
You did mention that out of this experience, there were at least a couple permanent operational changes that you guys made. Maybe just talk briefly about what this taught you as an organization and how you adjusted.
The biggest one was not doing any more courses where rain specifically could have that huge of an effect on our ability to do the event, and festivals, like always having festivals where we had full access to the course and the festival on paved surfaces, even if a large portion of the festival was on grass, and making sure that a wet ground situation would not cause a huge problem.
So, and then like looking back, I'm just curious, is there something you're most proud of yourself or your team or the company for having achieve that day?
The thing I think I'm most proud of about the team that day is keeping the focus where the focus should be. Like the focus never shifted off of, we need to provide a safe event for people, and we need to provide an event that is as close to what we promised as we can possibly make it in this like setting. It never became a like, what's the easiest way to get out of this?
Yeah.
How do we just get this day over with almost no like pep talk about it. Like we didn't have to pull the team in and say, hey, keep the focus on the runners here and let's provide them a great experience.
Right.
Everyone just knew to do that.
Yeah.
So what would happen is, these little miracles all throughout the event would happen as well. Someone who's out manning the course that sees someone pushing a stroller and the stroller's having a hard time, so they go pick up the stroller for them and help them get it through a section. Or
awesome.
Everyone was just looking for ways to make the event better for people, and like that focus, I'm proud of that.
That's great. And then finally, the question I end every interview with, after a situation like this, you stuck with it. Obviously there are less stressful jobs in the world. Just what keeps bringing you back? Why do you keep doing this work?
Oh man, it feels like an addiction.
You're not the first person to say that, so I get it.
I love it so much, but I think part of why it feels like an addiction to me is because I think it's like existentially important to humans to connect to each other, and being a part of facilitating that feels like I always struggle to say this in a way that doesn't feel like I'm like over spiritualizing it or making it whatever, but it feels kind of sacred to create and maintain spaces where people connect. Feels like a sacred responsibility. This is a really great quote about how life is this long stretch of gray cement with these little sparkling bits of mica in it throughout, and it would be great if those little moments came to us without any effort, but they don't. Like we have to work to make them.
Right.
And being part of like the crazy band of people that makes it their living to try to create these little sparkling moments in an otherwise gray stretch of cement that is life. It's awesome. I love it.
I love that. That's great stuff. Awesome. Thank you so much, John. Most event professionals spend their entire careers trying to hide the chaos, but sometimes the chaos becomes the experience. What could have been a catastrophic public failure instead became something memorable, human, and strangely joyful because the people running the event refused to stop caring once things went wrong. John and his team didn't save the event by pretending everything was fine. They saved it by adapting in real time, staying honest with their audience, focusing on what actually mattered, and creating a shared experience that people would remember. Mud and all. John, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you all for listening to In the Unlikely Event. We will see you next time when the next unlikely thing goes surprisingly right. Thanks for listening to In the Unlikely Event, where we unpack the moments that went wrong and celebrate the people who made them right. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And hey, while you're at it, drop us a review or share this episode with a fellow event pro who's been through their own little disaster. You can catch more great content by following Unlikely Event on YouTube, Unlikely Event Pod on Instagram and TikTok, and Soho EXP on LinkedIn. I'm Rick Kiley, and I'll see you next time, right here on In the Unlikely Event.